So my main file server has had some issues, so in this video I'm going to do a vloggy style video of trying to get some of the data back after some hard drive and potentially other issues in the RAID array, and just kind of going through the process, seeing what issues I run into. And I think it'd kind of be interesting to see what goes on during these processes, and I think it might be interesting to show it with you all. Just as an aside, I have backups of most of this data I care about, so it's not super critical if anything was to fail, but I think it's still fun to go through the process here. This is also my personal stuff. I treat work stuff a lot more carefully, and I've been a little bit lazy with my personal box. So let's get to the story of what I have here and what's kind of been the progress so far before I started shooting. So this is my main home server running Proxmox on it, and in addition to running my VMs, it also stores a lot of data, primarily on these 12 hard drive bays in the front of the server, which all contain 3 terabyte drives in a ZFS RAID Z2 array. In addition to these drives, there's also two 2.5-inch drives in the back of the server that work as a mirrored special drive for the array or hold metadata. And what happened a bit ago is the drive in the top right here that's kind of sticking out a little bit failed. So I was like, oh, hard drive failure is one of those Seagate 3 terabyte drives that had a ton of issues. And I was like, oh, okay, it's just one of those bad drives, replace it. Swaps in another one of those bad Seagate drives, had another issue. Maybe it was just that drive happened to die as well. Had a third drive, failed rebuilding. I was like, that's odd. And I was like, oh, I'll push that down the line. I'm meaning to upgrade this server and replace it with something else anyways. We'll do that later. Well, that still has been failed for a couple weeks now because I'm lazy and don't care that much about my personal stuff, it looks like. So then a couple days ago, I had another drive fail and it was degraded. And I was like, oh, but it's a RAID Z2. I can lose 2 drives. I've lost 2. It's still working. No, that's fine. Then earlier today, I lost the third drive. That's not good. But this doesn't seem to be a hard drive failure type of problem. This seems like a backplane or HBA. And the reason I say that is if you see those little yellow lights on some of the drive bays, it's been bouncing between the drive bays between reboots, which doesn't feel like hard drive failure issues. And it just, but the fact that rebuilds have failed when I swapped multiple drives in really feels like not a hard drive issue and something else. So my next plan of action is going to be to pull all of these drives out and put them in a different server. Hopefully it's something just related to the backplane, and if I put all these drives in a new box, it's going to just start working again. Now, some of the issue is I need a system that holds 14 drives, which is a lot for anything desktop class, and it also has to be able to support SAS drives, because 4 of these drives here are SAS 3 terabyte drives, as well as the 2.5-inch drives are also SAS drives. Which leads me to probably using this box down here. This is my EMC Isilon server, very old 1366 system at this point, but it supports 12 SAS drives in the front, which seems like a pretty good combination, as well as it's being hooked up into the Supermicro JBOD, which supports an additional 12 SAS drives, so I can put a lot of SAS drives in the system and start copying the data off of it. So that's my, hopefully, next plan right now. I'm just going to move all the drives over. Hopefully the ZFS RAID just imports and starts copying data as I would hope it does. The one fun part is this Isilon server here is actually filled with 22 terabyte drives. It was originally filled up with these drives for my DRAID video, as I wanted a large array to mess around with data with. And it has a few other things on it right now, like my movies and media archive backup. But I guess for now, those are just going to be stored in a pile somewhere else. As you can see by this video, I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to managing my own files. I'm also just going to take a quick look at what software shows is going on with ZFS right now. So ZFS shows that IO is suspended on that pool, and if I take a look at zpool status, I can see all of my drives, and I've had a total of 3 faulted or degraded, meaning it's suspended operation on the pool, and it says there's some data errors. I'm not going to bother looking at that now. I've just given up and saying we're pulling out drives and trying them in the new system. I've also just tried running zpool export to remove the array from the system, so then it's no longer recognized, so hopefully it reduces any possible issues of just yanking the drives out. Because the system is also running some VMs right now in its own storage, I'm not going to shut it down and just leave it running as I pull the drives out. So I got my server booted up with all of these drives inside of it, and it's running Debian 12, a bookworm on it, so now I'm just going to log into the system and take a look at what's going on. I truly apologize for the very poor camera recording the screen, but that's what's the easiest in this situation, and I want things to get done, hopefully quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is just run lsblk-d to not show partitions, and see how many drives we have. So that mostly seems correct. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grep 2.7, which is the size I want, and then I'm going to do WC-L, which is going to show me how many drives I have. And thanks to my awesome screen I have right here, it gets cut off. So maybe it'll auto-adjust. No, it won't. Okay, it looks like we're counting manually. So one hacky way I found to read the actual value is using Tmux to split my screen in half. So I can see I can only see 10 drives, and I believe there should be 11. My first gut is that my SAS JBOD is just not connecting properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk over to my JBOD and move the drive into a different sled to see maybe that was it. I'm also going to try just replugging it, and hopefully it's one of those. That dropped to 9, so it wasn't my SAS JBOD drive, it was something else. Let's hope that goes back up to 10. Yep, goes back up to 10. So it was one of the other drives. So that means I could either have an actual drive failure, or I could have one of the drives needs to be replugged. So I'm going to try to figure out which one it is by yanking all these drives and seeing if the number goes down. Well, it looks like the first one I yanked, the number didn't get affected. So maybe I got darn lucky, or maybe it's not working right. Let's just try yanking one more to see if the number goes down. Yep, it does. Well, I guess I got lucky with the first one I yanked being the one that does it. So this drive's going to get put into the JBOD now instead of being put directly into the Supermicro. And hopefully that fixes the problem. But when inserting this drive, I get a blinking flashing light, and it doesn't show up either when I use that SAS JBOD. So that's making me think there's potentially an issue with this drive, actually. Since I should be able to recover the array with only the 10 drives I have, I am very tempted to try it and do it. But what I'm probably also going to start right now is using ddrescue to clone it onto a different disk, so that way in case it is a failed drive and it is needed in the array, I'm going to have access to that data. So I'm going to kick this over to one of my little test bench systems to start doing the cloning now. So it's going to be on a working disk. And then for now, I'm going to just try starting to do the recovery on the 10 disks that I have. Hopefully it's enough to get the data I want. So let's see. I don't know how well you can hear that sound. But that's a dead hard drive. Looks like I also have some bad drives that are causing this problem as well as my software issues. Probably means it's going to be pretty hard to get data off of it, but I'll give ddrescue a try. That's not a good sign to see when I'm booting Debian. That's definitely not a happy drive. This drive doesn't seem to be showing up at all in the system, or maybe it's that 3.9 gigabyte drive if it's showing up as, which means it has major issues, and my basic ddrescue to get data off a failing drive is probably not going to work here, or not without a lot more effort. So let's hope I can get data off that RAID array with 2 failed drives now. And now here's to hoping that I can get stuff working with just 10 drives, which hopefully is enough, but we'll find out. So I'm back SSH into the system right now. So if I run lsblk, I can see all my drives here. And then I'm just going to try running zport, import, and being optimistic. Haha, I have to run it as sudo. So let's run right now, and it says it was last accessed by another system and be imported despite the missing and damaged devices. That's fine. That's kind of what I'm expecting. And looking at it right now, I can see that I have most of my devices online. Well, all 4 of the drives as I'd expect. We have faulted drives with corrupted data. That's fine. And both of my special drives are working fine. So let's do zport import HDD. And if I run ZFS list right now, that looks good. I can see everything. I need to copy the data somewhere. So just for fun right now, I'm going to run ZFS list-o space to see what's going on space-wise. And it looks like I have about 20-some terabytes used. So now I'm going to have to find a combination of drives with at least that much free space to start copying all my data onto now. One other thing I was thinking I possibly could do is add some drives to make this degraded RAID Z2 into a full RAID Z2 again. I guess there's disadvantages that I'm possibly putting additional I/O on these drives, but I'd also be putting that I/O on the drives if I was to copy the data off anyways, and I might as well use that I/O to make a second redundant copy. So I might just start doing that now just to kind of have a bit more redundancy. So I've added an additional 3 terabyte hard drive to hopefully replace one of the failed drives when I'm doing the migration to another system. So on the left I have lsblk that I ran before adding the additional drive, and on the right is after adding it, which should show me what the new drive is, and it looks like it's /dev/sdn. So now I'm going to run zpool status on the system to see what all of the drives on here are. Shrink the text down a little bit, and then I'm going to do sudo zpool replace pool name, which is HDD. Find one of these that is either degraded or faulted. Gonna just run that again. It looks like this drive is starting to show some other errors because I only had 2 having issues, but now I'm down to 3. So I'm gonna go replace one of these missing drives with my new /dev/sdn. Yes, I know you're supposed to use the correct like UUID paths, but I'm lazy and this is quicker and I want to get this working quicker. And also, ZFS is generally pretty good at rescanning all your disks and finding anything that has like ZFS data potentially on it. /sdn contains a EFI label. That seems interesting because I'm almost certain I wiped that drive beforehand just to be sure. But if I run lsblk, one other thing I can do, yeah, it looks like it's empty, /dev/sdn. That should be fine. One other thing I'm going to do just to be sure that I'm writing on the correct drive is by using Smart Control to look at the serial number and model number of the drive. I know what the actual model number should be, so if I see it on the computer, I know it's right. Then again, ZFS is also generally pretty smart and won't rewrite over any drive. Yep, that's right. It's one of those SD3000 DM0001 drives. I know that's the correct drive. So I am going to go in here and do zpool replace -f to force the replacement of the drive. That pool is not happy at all, but hopefully it does it. I'm also going to switch over to IOStat just to kind of get a feel for what's going on in the system. Looks like SDN had a bit of header data written to it, and hopefully about now it starts rewriting and I start getting a bit of redundancy in this pool, because that would be great. I can do zpool status -v1, and it looks like, oh, that's interesting. Cannot replace if SDN is busy or device removal is in process. That's odd. Almost certain SDN is not part of that pool. You know what? I'm going to add another drive that's going to be like a 4 terabyte drive just so that I'm 100% sure that it's not one of the failed drives, because I'm not getting it confused. So in goes another drive. So now I've put in a 6 terabyte hard drive. Looks like it's SDO in my system right now. And I'm going to try replacing one of the failed drives with it. Most notably just using a 6 terabyte just because now I know it's not one of the good drives, because none of the other ones are 6 terabytes. Let's see what it does right now. Hopefully it works correctly. So if I go back, I can see those C and D, which I believe are my special drives on the system, are reading and writing data. So hopefully it's updating the metadata or something with the correct things. And it looks like it says a resliver is in process, which is hopefully a good sign. One other thing I can do if I want to see a little bit more information in ZFS is do zpool iostat-v1, which will show me a constantly updating what IOs are going on in the drive. Looks like it's reading the metadata right now, and hopefully it'll start doing the rebuild. I don't necessarily need to do this rebuild as the data is good, but seeing that I kind of have lost or had a degraded another drive, I prefer to use my I/O to get a second redundant copy of the data instead of trying to copy data off if it fails midway through. So it's a new day, and I hoped my rebuild would have finished, but it didn't actually, and my rebuild to SDO failed with some errors on the drive, which seems really weird because I was pretty sure that drive was working correctly, and I'm also pretty sure the enclosure it's in is also working correctly. So maybe this ZFS pool is just kind of screwed up in a weird way. I don't know, but I'm just going to try to copy the data off of it. I'm giving up doing any potential rebuilding and just getting it working. So the next steps I'm going to have to take involve building a server to store all these files on as a temporary dump of states. For my temporary storage for all the files that were on that system, I'm going to be using this Ugreen 6-bay NAS box. It has 6 bays and I can fill it with drives and it works perfectly fine. Nothing sponsored, just happen to have that hardware kicking around right now. The other thing I'm going to use for the rest of the drives is these assorted 8 terabyte drives. I used to have it in a previous server, but it's 6 8 terabyte drives. And if I put that in a ZFS RAID Z1, single parity or RAID 5, that'll give me a bit under 40 terabytes of usable storage space after I had taken account like terabytes and TB conversions. But before I can copy files to it, I need to put an OS on it. And in this case, I'm going to be putting Proxmox on it because it's a Linux distro that comes with ZFS pre-installed. and it's super easy to install VMs if I want to. OS really doesn't matter in this case, I just wanted something quick that I'm familiar with. All the 8TB drives are now installed in the Ugreen NAS, so now it's time to try setting it up in software and hopefully the files copy over correctly. So now I'm SSH'd into the new Ugreen server that I'm going to dump all my files on. So I'm just going to run lsdok right now and double check that all my drives on it. -D to hide all the different partitions, counting my 7.3TB drives, and it counts up to 6, so that's correct. And I'm just going to do zpool create, we'll just call it dump for now, raid z1, and now I can actually create my ZFS pool. So when I run zpool status -v1, I can see I have my pool here, and zpool iostat shows that I have all of my drives if I run -v. So now the next question is, how do I want to copy all the files to here? So the two main ways I can see that it's possible to copy files over from the system is the first is just doing a file copy, where you copy the files over something like NFS or Samba share over the network. And while that would most certainly work, I am tempted to do another method, which is going to be to use ZFS send and receive. And this sends it as kind of a block level ZFS level data and does a lot less processing. It does help speed a good amount with small files, but that isn't a huge issue on just a gigabit network. But my hope here is it's going to lower the chances that ZFS does anything weird, and it also means I can't skip files due to permissions or anything like that. So let's start using ZFS to copy some files. Oftentimes on guides online, they're going to use SSH to tunnel the files for ZFS send and receive, which works perfectly fine. But the problem is that means my older systems like this 1366 system I have here has to encrypt and decrypt everything, and that can slow it down a good amount. So I'm just going to use Netcat, which sends it unencrypted over the network. This could potentially be a security risk, but since this is on my own local network and I trust and know all the cables are and it's not super critical, I'm perfectly fine taking that security risk. So the first step is going to go on the send system. So I'm going to just do a ZFS list right now. And I'm going to say, hey, let's go send over, in this example, hd/storage. So I'm going to do sudo ZFS snapshot hd/storage at send time. Let's just name it that. And then I can send that snapshot over. Going back to the guide, I'm going to use ZFS send, and then the snapshot name, and pipe it into netcat-w with the port and the IP address you want to send it to. So, well, it took me a lot more attempts to get this working than I would have hoped. I forgot the -p for port for the longest time. But taking a look at it, I can see it's copying at 112 megabytes per second, which is exactly what I expect for a gigabit network. Going over some other utilities just for fun. Yep, exactly about a gigabit. And back to this Isilon system that has my old drives, pulling data from all 10 of them, the bare minimum that it needs for this RAID Z2. So at this point, I just hope this system doesn't have any issues and can copy over all my data. So sending my first ZFS data set worked just fine. I can see storage here at just a bit under 8.5TB, and that worked just as I expected. My second one, which is called Video Projects, has had a few more problems. The first thing I did is just try sending it like the last one, and it stopped about 380 megabytes in it and gave me an error that there was an input-output error. So what I've tried doing now is setting up an NFS server and copying all those files over NFS. And it seems like it's working now. It's kind of slow, I'm not sure exactly why, but it is copying all of those files. And I can see here it's kind of alternating between reading disks and dumping it over the network. Not troubleshooting it, don't care about speed, just want to try to get some data. Now, the other thing is, if I run ZFS status as sudo, I can see all of these files here that have errors, and the drive has detected that there's problems with thanks to the ZFS. So these at least are all getting restored from backup, and I've taken note of that. But at least for now, I'm just waiting for it to hopefully copy everything it can from NFS to get most of that data. So after copying data for about a day, Video Projects is effectively done, missing all, but it looks like 2 files as reported by rsync. I'm still going to do some double checking of comparing all my files from here to the files from my other backup that I had done with PBS, just to make sure the checksums seem right of everything that's on both copies. But the reason I wanted to recover this is this had some newer files that weren't on those backups likely. But I can also do a quick sanity check of the space, and I can see this Video Projects is about 8.3TB here on the ZFS pool, and it's about 8.3TB on the DU one. So everything looks pretty good, and I'm glad ZFS did its job after losing 2 drives and still having another drive with read errors. It looks like I got about as much as I could ever expect to get with a pretty bad situation, and I'm actually quite happy with how ZFS handled this. Lessons learned to me is keep a better eye on drives and try to replace them early, and if you're having issues replacing drives, it might be a good idea to just completely replace the pool, especially if there are already a lot of old drives that might have issues, because it can quickly go from a single drive failure, which shouldn't be any issue, to losing 2 drives and having more data issues, which can cause problems like these. Let me know if you've had issues like this getting data off some old systems in the processes you've gone through, and hopefully this is an interesting experience to watch in a little video, and let me know if you want to see more videos kind of like this in the future. Thanks for watching.